Hello everyone, my name is T Hunter. If this is your first time coming to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back and thank you so much for coming back. Ooh, especially after I have been gone for a month. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into today's video. As you can tell by the title, it is a reaction video to this current season of Married at First Sight, season 15, in the illustrious San Diego, California. This season has been a lot. I was really hoping that, San Diego was going to, bring it on home because I am originally from California. But I have no control over what other Californians do, whether they are single or married. First couple that I would like to start with, let's just jump in with Stasha and Nate. So with these two, I have definitely been noticing a communication barrier. I don't think that it's necessarily an issue of them not understanding one another versus an issue of I want you to communicate or I want you to do things in the way that I think that you should do them. And if you don't, then I am going to have an issue with the fact that you're not meeting the standards that I have set for you, which are actually the standards that I'm using to govern myself. I get that impression more so from Stasha because perhaps her love language is words of affirmation or the verbal declaration of love, whereas Nate's love language could be acts of service, where you are demonstrating through your behavior that you care about someone, that you value them, what have you. Or we can even take love languages out of it altogether. Sometimes men are not as verbally expressive with their feelings, whereas women, we are deemed to be more emotional. That's not saying that that's a bad thing. It's just men and women are wired differently. We communicate differently. So even though we might be saying the same thing, more so the gist of what we're trying to say, we might be trying to convey the same message and we're just saying it with different words. And if we are not doing our best to read between the lines, ask questions for better clarity and understanding, then we can see a breakdown in communication because on the surface, it just looks like, well, I'm asking you for A and you keep giving me B. When it comes to Nate and Stasha, I really think that they're just going to have to continue to be patient with each other and give each other time as they get acclimated to one another. They've only known each other for 2 months, not, oh, we've been dating for 2 months after having known each other for a year. Stasha's hope for Nate to either be in love with her or at least be at the stage where he is comfortable with saying, I love you to her. I don't want to say it's unreasonable because there are people who might fall quickly and they can know within 2 months or less whether or not they love you and be comfortable with saying it. However, Nate is not one of those people. So if they are going to build a marriage that lasts and they can experience not only physical but also emotional intimacy and be able to trust each other, that's going to take time. This idea of, well, you should just love me already and be able to say that within 2 months, that's not everybody's jam. And I don't know if that goes back to maybe abandonment as far as Stasha not having a relationship with her father at all. Because, I don't know her. I haven't sat down with her and had a conversation with her for her to pinpoint and say, this is the reason why I want Nate to tell me that he loves me. Or I'm going to have like a really difficult time trusting that I'm going to be in a marriage that is filled with love. If we consider ourselves to be emotionally mature and we are dealing with people that we consider to be beneath that level of emotional maturity, We cannot force them to meet us where we are. We will have to meet them where they are. And if we want a relationship with them, things have to be organic. Because if there is a pressure for people to communicate the way that we do, just say all the right things, do all the right things, and come across as the perfect person, either you get a facade or they're going to reach a breaking point with you. And now their communication is going to be void of compassion, void of curiosity, void of patience, and in Stasha's case, that communication might not come across as so loving. If Nate continues to get to a frame of mind where he no longer cares because he is tired of trying to prove himself to her, and in his mind feeling like she doesn't understand him and doesn't see his efforts for what they are. Love is an action word. It definitely is. It's easy to say I love you for some people, but for others it means much more when they are showing that the love is actually there, by respect, by being trustworthy, by being consistent in whatever it is that they say that they're going to do, they actually deliver. So everyone expresses and experiences love differently. And as soon as Stasha can give Nate the grace to express and experience love in his own way and then come back to her and genuinely express it, be it in word or in deed, I believe they could definitely have a shot. But trying to force someone to meet you where you are or to where you think that they should be, that's not organic, nor is it conducive to the true growth of intimacy. These things, they take time. And if you're not willing to give it time, there's a possibility that you can walk away from a potentially great situation before you've even been able to see the growth. No one puts a seed into the ground and goes back to check the following morning with the expectation of seeing a tree in full bloom. However, when it comes to relationships, sometimes people can have that approach. Well, because I know where I want to be in this relationship, I just think you should be there with me too. And that's not always the case. Everyone moves at their own pace. People fall at different paces. People are comfortable with different expressions of love at different paces. If you really want to develop, intimacy, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, all of the things, it's gonna take time. So I am, definitely rooting for Nate and Stasha, not only as a unit, but also individually. So whatever blocks they might be experiencing in their communication with each other due to, say, past trauma, past abandonment, issues as far as them missing out on relationships with one of their parents. I pray that they can work through that. I've had high hopes for them all season long, so we'll see what happens next week on decision day for them. Next couple, Lindy and Miguel. Even as early as the wedding day, I was thinking to myself, is Miguel going to get annoyed with this woman? Because when she is dead set on doing something and things are not working out the way that maybe she hopes that they would, she can easily switch into a negative mindset where now she's going down this like negative, almost like anxiety spiral of all the things that could go wrong. Why is this happening? If this doesn't get better, then this will happen. And then if that happens and this happens, and it's just, you're down the rabbit hole. And that can be pretty exhausting to watch. So I can only imagine how bad it could feel for Lindy to be going through it. Whew. After seeing Miguel in a very, like a pretty bad mood due to him having low energy and being exhausted by the time the couples retreat rolled around, I was wondering, it's really easy to just jump on, social media and say, oh my gosh, Miguel, you're so controlling or you're super insensitive. We don't know what this man has been facing at work or what he's been facing in the home setting leading up to the retreat. We only know what we see based on what production allows us to see each and every week. And those interactions, they're not that long. That's just what production decided to air. I'm sure there are probably a lot of details that we had missed by the time the retreat rolled around. But in the weeks afterward, I'm glad that both Miguel and Lindy were able to demonstrate really good insight as far as their behaviors that are triggering each other. Miguel being able to say, it bothers me when I'm trying to be vulnerable with you. One way that I do that is sharing my poetry with you. Dude is really big on poetry. So her being distracted on the horse carriage ride while he's trying to recite romantic poems to her, yeah, I would have been annoyed as well. There's nothing worse than, as a person who is creative, trying to share something that you've come up with, that you created, you spent time on. Maybe, this is like your pride and joy. And as you're trying to share it with someone, their mind is everywhere else but with you. Their attention span is that short. You're trying to be vulnerable with them, and they can't even pause long enough to focus in and appreciate the time that you've put in to try to create something and then share it with them. However, that's if that is truly a part of Lindy's personality, whether she has undiagnosed ADHD or that's just simply how she is. She's a person who gets easily distracted and is easily excitable by things. That's something that they're going to have to try to navigate through if they're going to stay together. While some people might look at it like, oh my gosh, why are they fighting about this? This is so terrible. Lindy should be able to just, express herself as far as, things that excite her. There's nothing wrong with that. However, there's a time and a place for everything. When someone is talking to you and they're sharing something personal, like something that they wrote with you, that is not the best time for you to be pointing out the scenery. The message that Miguel got was, okay, yeah, whatever you're saying, that's not important to me at all. I'm too busy focusing on what's going on over here. I also think that it was great for Lindy and Miguel to have that conversation around what they deem to be deal breakers as far as their behavior, how they speak to each other, and just how they interact. Lindy was crying at during one of the episodes saying, I'm filtering so much of myself because I'm afraid that if I tell you everything that is going on with me, that I'm going to lose you. And Miguel is still a stranger to her. She might not 100% feel comfortable telling him everything that she's thinking because she doesn't want to scare him off. Absolutely. I understand that. I get that. What I will say is this. I, as a therapist, would not expect a new client to just open up to me and just bear everything in that first session because they don't know me. They haven't built rapport with me. They don't know my communication style yet. They don't know how I process things. So like everything is brand new. So instead of having this idea of, well, you just need to open up and just tell me everything, no, because I'm a stranger to them. And so same thing goes with, these marriages. Um, so it makes sense that Lindy is filtering because she doesn't know Miguel well enough to know, hey, if I show you everything that comes with me, is that going to be too much? And am I going to lose you? Because I don't want to. I don't want to lose you. I also like that Lindy and Miguel were able to have a conversation around, there are certain things that I might do that I'm not doing them with the intention of being disrespectful. That's not the message that I'm trying to send. However, if you deem that to be disrespectful, then if I do it, that's going to be a problem. It was good for them to highlight that as well. Like, just because I do something that you deem as disrespectful doesn't mean that that was the intention and that's the energy that I'm coming with. Like, for example, you have people who, they are just naturally loud speakers. So for those of us who are a bit more quiet, cool, calm, and collected, you speaking loud to me could come across as you yelling. And then if we're having a disagreement, the disagreement goes from the content of the conversation to, well, now I just don't like the way that you're talking to me. So now we have to fight about that. I thought it was great that Lindy could point that out. I thought it was good that Miguel could recognize that going into the retreat, he was a bit low energy, and so that definitely affected his mood. And I'm glad that he could also acknowledge, like, when I'm in a low mood, that can definitely affect how I talk to my wife. That can affect how I interpret some of the things that she's saying and doing. So, low energy, maybe I'm not feeling the best. So I might not be as patient with my wife as I would be if I were well rested or in a much better mood. So even like, being able to take responsibility for, hey, If I'm low energy, not having the best day, if I'm not in the best mood, maybe there are certain conversations that I just don't have with my wife because she's not going to get the best version of me. And therefore, I might not be as patient as I need to be. I might not be as understanding as I need to be in order for us to have necessary conversations that are difficult without us getting disrespectful, without us shutting each other down, triggering each other, and just bringing out the worst in each other. Kudos to Miguel for that. And as I said, it's easy to jump to a conclusion based on a couple of negative interactions that we see, but we don't really know exactly what's going on behind closed doors. Some of this could also be production. This is reality TV, so that means that there's an expectation of if it's not entertaining, people will not watch. If people do not watch, we don't have those ratings, that's going to be a problem. Now, the show could potentially be in jeopardy. I'm sure there are definitely some conversations that producers will suggest in order to get the most entertaining content as possible out of the couples as we're watching. But all in all, I think that they seem like good people. The question is, are they good for each other? That's ultimately what's going to make or break the marriage. Moving on to, let's do Mitch and Kristen. So originally, Mitch was pretty clear that Kristen is just not, his type. She's not the woman that he would normally go for. And you know what? That's fine. Everybody has a type. There's always that possibility that you could wind up with someone who originally you would say, they're not my type. But because of, say, like a really beautiful character, I'm going to give this person a chance and, go against what I normally would chase after because perhaps your type isn't actually good for you. I also believe that there was a reason why there was a delay between him, exiting from the single life. We don't know exactly how he was showing up in those other relationships. After giving Kristen a fair chance, I believe that Mitch is starting to realize she is of value, not just to him, but just period. It was nice to hear him say, I do appreciate everything that you do. I appreciate, your patience. I appreciate your willingness to be understanding of this, rather unorthodox lifestyle that I lead, being like a very passionate environmentalist. It's a lot for her to sacrifice. And I think it was great that he could acknowledge my lifestyle isn't for everyone. And since he was not matched with someone who is as passionate about environmentalism as he is, they're going to have to, be flexible, have to be understanding, and meet him where he is. However, that does not give him a pass to be completely unreasonable or to even try to be controlling and to try to morph Kristen into the female version of himself. That would not be fair. I think it is essential not only for Kristen to be flexible and to be understanding, but also for Mitch to do the same. For him to realize that in order for this marriage to work, there are certain things that not only Kristen has to, adjust to, adapt to, and give up, but so does he. Marriage is a mirror. However this person is experiencing you day in and day out, they reflect that back to you. If you want a spouse who will sacrifice and will be understanding and will be supportive, be prepared to do the same, or be prepared to lose them. I'm glad that Mitch was able to recognize, hey, I do have a good thing going with Kristen, even if she is not 100% like on the same page as me as far as environmentalism. And I don't want to lose her because she's a great person. She's caring, she's hardworking, she's incredibly supportive, she is emotionally mature in how she has dealt with Mitch these past 7-8 weeks. I'm sure that he recognizes that. And I think it's great that even his family members are able to just like level with him and ask him, can you make this work with this woman? Because it seems like she's putting in the work to want to get to know you better, to be supportive and to be understanding and just accept you for who you are and possibly even encourage you to tap into better versions of yourself. Sometimes we can have these great expectations and we have a dream and we have these plans of what we think our life is going to be like or what we think our spouse is going to be like. And if we were to actually get the plan that we had, if we were to actually achieve the dream that we had in our minds, there is always the possibility that we still would not be satisfied because maybe what we dreamed and what we planned didn't necessarily cover everything that we need. I do agree with Kristen's statement that if she continues to be so flexible and understanding to the point that she starts to lose herself, she could snap in this marriage. So hopefully Mitch will recognize that turning Kristen into a female version of himself is not going to be in his best interest, because once she is no longer able to recognize herself as far as who she wants to be, her own personality, her dreams and her passions, whether they come true or not, if she loses sight of all of that, that's a perfect breeding ground for resentment. Like, oh, this person that I used to be, that person is gone, or I've changed and it hasn't been for the better due to this relationship. That's not a good position to be in, where someone can point the finger back at you and say, I've changed, but not for the better, in an effort to make you happy and stay in this relationship. Hopefully that is something that Mitch has been considering, especially now that we are 1 week away from decision day. And he's recognizing, hey, life with Kristen is actually not bad at all. Let's go ahead and move into Justin and Alexis. I guess the one blaring question that I had after watching them all season long, especially last week's episode, is where are the boundaries? Like, where are the limits? It's one thing to playfully banter with your spouse, crack jokes on each other, and you're both genuinely laughing and having a good time, and no one is taking offense. But it's another when every opportunity that you have to take a dig at your spouse, you're taking that opportunity and you're doing it, whether it be in private or in mixed company. And I see that a lot on Alexis' behalf. And perhaps that's just her way of communicating, hey, I don't really like you. But instead of coming right out and saying, I don't like you, I'm gonna make jokes, I'm gonna say them with a big smile, or if I say something that offends you and you try to set a limit with me, like the episode when Justin took his ring off in response to her saying, I don't know if I can be married to Justin, then you have to try to backpedal and say things with a soft voice as if, oh, okay, well, let me turn on softness and not be aggressive, because if I'm aggressive, then he might not want to fool with me. And part of me wonders what would have happened if Justin had a moment like Miguel did at the prom. So Miguel had told Lindy, you snapping your fingers at me or saying, you speaking to me in certain ways, they're not gonna fly. I wonder what would have happened if Justin had just straight leveled with Alexis and said, you know what, you making fun of me being emotional, you making fun of me as far as my performance in the bedroom, that's not gonna fly. I don't want you to talk to me like that. I wonder what her response would have been. Like, would she have doubled down, or would she have at least thought, okay, I don't want to come across as the bad guy, so I'm going to stop. Even if I think those thoughts, I won't say them. Some thoughts are inside thoughts. We don't want those to sneak out. My reframe was, if words of affirmation are the love language that most people are familiar with, is Alexis operating from the love language of words of humiliation? Like, she expresses love by trying to make jokes about her spouse? I don't know. Another area with boundaries and limits. Justin revealed that he had a conversation with his mother about their marital sex life. And I'm thinking, bro, that is not a conversation that you should be having with your mother in the first place. And then why circle back and tell your wife you had that conversation? Like, any droplets of hope that I might have had around these two being able to make it because Alexis takes him seriously, I just felt like, shoo. I saw the look on her face when he admitted to having that conversation with his mother, and her feedback around, oh, well, you just need to perform this way versus that way. Where are the limits? Where are the boundaries? Where are the, okay, we don't cross these lines, and these are certain topics that we just don't discuss with our parents. I'll just say it like this. Our parents don't need to know everything. They really don't. Especially once you're married, you're on your own. You're paying your own bills. As a husband, you're taking care of your wife and your family. Certain details they just don't need to know, especially your bedroom details. As far as the whole sacrifice around Justin giving up Maya because she was aggressive, not only towards Newton, but she was also aggressive in the like training camp that she was in towards another dog. I could understand both sides where Justin was saying, I want you to know that this sacrifice, me giving up my dog, I hope that you believe I'm all in because I was willing to do this for our marriage, for us. And she said, yeah, I can understand that, but I don't want you to hold it over my head. It's like, yeah, it's not the most comfortable position to be in. Well, I made this huge sacrifice for you, so you better appreciate it because we have no control over how people interpret things and whether or not they will respond with appreciation or not. That's not up to us. We cannot make grand gestures with the expectation that people are going to just be so grateful and so appreciative that we made them. Like you could make a grand gesture like that, make a huge sacrifice like Justin did, and the response could be, okay, I don't care. That doesn't mean nothing to me. It makes sense that you got rid of your dog. Your dog's aggressive. It does speak volumes that he's looking at it like, if I'm going to be with this woman, Alexis, for the rest of my life, and she's not comfortable with my dog, well, I'm not going to, well, it's my dog. And we've been together, for 7 years. So you just gonna have to buck up. I guess that's also an example that everyone interprets sacrifices differently. In Alexis' mind, it might be, it's not, it's a no-brainer. You got an aggressive dog who has, demonstrated like how they can be territorial, be aggressive, and not behave the best around other dogs. Why keep them around? Like to her, it might be a no-brainer. Be like, oh, it's not really that big of a sacrifice because it's going to be comfortable staying with a dog with history of aggression, especially when it comes to marriage and potentially family building. I don't know about those two. I think back to the digs, not so funny jokes that Alexis makes. It makes me question if she would ever just openly admit, like, no, I do not like Justin. I'm not attracted to him, but I don't like you as a person, period. And that's why I'm behaving the way that I'm behaving towards you. That's why I'm making all of these jokes. That's why I'm taking digs at you. That's why I'm behaving the way that I'm behaving, because I don't really like you. And rather than just come right out and say it, I'm going to mock you. I'm going to insult you. I'm going to put you down. One of the last comments that she made as Justin was packing up his things, getting ready to leave the apartment, before decision day, she said, oh, I just feel like you'll stalk me if I say no. Like you'll be like by my window. And I thought to myself, just like I said, like where are the limits? Like why do we just say everything that comes to mind? Her and Justin do have a habit of doing that. I remember thinking to myself, you know what, Justin? Even if that is your style, please do not stalk Alexis. Like, please don't. Even if you say yes on decision day and she says no, just please don't stalk her. Because I guess there was a history of that. She had said they matched on an app, a dating app. She wasn't really feeling him like that. And then he found her on Instagram and basically told him, I'm not interested in you. And then ta-da, they were matched. Married at first sight. I hope that he proves her wrong. If she says no, that he just lets her go. I guess really briefly, because Morgan and Ben have already made their decision to end their marriage prior to decision day, when it comes to them, I just want to address the shenanigans around the communication. Morgan, she didn't want anyone to know that she hadn't finished her bachelor's degree, and Ben broke her trust by going and telling Justin, okay, she lied about being a nurse. No, she didn't. She didn't lie about that. She lied about having her bachelor's degree. But when she wanted him to like make a pact with her, you know what it is, camera, decided, hey, we're done. Just gonna finish this on my phone. Morgan and Ben. It was pretty extreme for Morgan to have this preference or this rule of, well, I don't want you talking to anyone in this experience as far as what goes down in our marriage, because the whole reason why the couples are placed together in the same apartment complex is so that they can rely on each other. So it's more of a community, in the intention of maybe even almost like building like a family type of vibe, because they're all going through the married at first sight experience together. No one else understands what it's like to be on Married at First Sight but the castmates. So then they can rely on each other for support, advice if they want to, what have you. So I just, I think that Morgan's solution to, well, you broke my trust, so I just don't want you to talk to anybody in the show, it's giving control the narrative by any means. That was the impression that I got. Sometimes I have noticed that when, perhaps a person who values titles or values appearances, what they may do in their relationships is try to make their partner take like a vow of silence, short of signing like an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, because in their minds they already know. If people knew exactly how I was treating you, exactly how I was behaving, or if they knew like the full truth about my accomplishments, what have you, things that I'm proud of, then they might really see that I have a fragile ego. Maybe I'm not all that I say that I am. My life might not be all that it's cracked up to be. And rather than risk being seen as fraudulent or incompetent or not as successful as they would hope for people to see them, they don't want to take that chance. So what does that mean now? I don't want you telling anybody anything about, the real me, who I am, behind closed door, when all the lights turn off, cameras are gone. I don't want you sharing that because I don't want people to see me as less than. While Morgan had that pretty strong reaction to, Ben not disclosing anything to anybody, and that seemed unreasonable, unfortunately, he agreed to it. So that was where he made an error. If there's anything that your partner is asking you to do in a relationship that you are not 100% sold on, you don't think that it's going to benefit your relationship, if it's going to take away from how you are as a person, so now you have to try to pretend to be someone you're not, don't agree to that thing. I wish that, Ben had said, you know what, I apologize for breaking your trust. I apologize for this betrayal. I apologize for how my behavior has hurt your feelings. However, I refuse to be silent and not talk to the other husbands who are in this experience, who can potentially give guidance, even if the guidance is just, have you talked to your wife, bro? Maybe she needs to know exactly how you're feeling. Have you talked to her? When do you plan on talking to her? Have you talked to the experts about this? Maybe you guys can orchestrate an additional session. We don't know if that's what the husbands would have said, because Morgan's stance was, well, just don't talk to them about anything, because you already went and told them that I don't have my bachelor's degree, and that was a big deal to her. Having been in a relationship, a dating relationship, where I have been told, hey, like, let's just keep whatever goes down in our relationship between the two of us. That's a really big ask, because people are going to talk to their friends and their family, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's trash talk. Now, that's one thing if you married a gossip who's going to portray you in the worst light possible whenever they get upset with you. I don't think that was Ben's intent. However, when you allege that someone lied about their career, yikes. Those are very strong words. Can't take those back. So even though he apologized, I can understand why, Morgan was so hurt by that. That was a very sensitive subject for her. Lying about, who she is in the professional world. When dealing with someone who may struggle with feeling good enough, may struggle with liking themselves because maybe they have been made to feel like they are less than because they haven't achieved A, B, and C in someone else's eyes. It's not unreasonable for them to take the stance of, well, I don't want you talking to anybody about me when I'm not present, because I don't know what you're saying, and I don't want you misrepresenting me, and I don't want people to think that I'm not all that I say that I am. I don't want them to see me as, someone with a fragile ego, or I don't want them to see me as a fraud, because I have puffed myself up off of maybe the things that I have bought or the milestones that I have achieved, be it in my career, educational endeavors, what have you. Therefore, you have to be quiet. Because if you say anything that doesn't match what I said, well, now people are going to have questions for me. And I don't want to answer questions and then have to look like a liar, have to look like a fraud. That's not comfortable. It has to come back and explain, well, yeah, I did lie about that, but I promise you I'm not lying about anything else. So as I said, the error that Ben made was agreeing to not talk to anybody about what's going on in his marriage. Because he could have been asking for advice, not just venting or trash talking. But taking that outlet away from him, now he has to turn inward. You know, Ben acknowledged when Morgan is upset, she has this temperament that is very similar to his father's, and it triggers him. So instead of talking to her, now he wants to run away from her and avoid any conflict, any difficult conversation whatsoever. Never one to root for the failure of a marriage. However, I'm also not one to support psychological, emotional abuse in a marriage either. It's not about just staying in a marriage just to be able to say that you have someone. That should never be the goal. So I really hope that Ben is able to obtain healing as he goes through therapy. Pray the same for Morgan as well, whether she seeks therapy, goes back and has difficult conversations with her father, whatever that's going to look like. Because Ben made a really good point in their final episode on the show when he said, Morgan needs to forgive, not for me, but for her. In order for her to be able to move on, she has to forgive me so that, you know, basically she's not going to be charging the next dude with what I've done wrong. And that's what happens when we don't forgive. We see the right script, wrong player concept play out. So if she chooses not to forgive Ben, then the next guy could be charged with his crimes, which is highly unfortunate. Those are my thoughts as far as this entire season of Married at First Sight thus far. By the time I upload this, decision day will be like a few days away. So we will definitely see what happens for the remaining couples, whether they say yes or they say no, just staying married. If you have enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a like, subscribe to my channel for more content, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a future post. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.